Hello, folks, and welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. The brouhaha promoted by President Trump issuing an executive order on February 7th, 2025, has transmorphed into a political fight in South Africa about land, as the media and politicians incorrectly infer that Trump issued the order simply because he claims land is being confiscated from Afrikaners. Not only is that a juvenile analysis, it's also highly disingenuous. President Trump clearly included reference to how South Africa's African National Congress has worked against U.S. national security interests, including nuclear cooperation with Tehran. But back to the land. Since there's an obsessive focus on that aspect of expropriation without compensation. South Africa's government has purchased 3.9 million hectares of land in the willing buyer, willing seller program under expropriation with compensation. Has all that land been transferred? No, it has not. So why not? There are many reasons, but among them, the same reason that RDP, Reconstruction Development Program houses, are not transferred en masse. The ANC doesn't want to saturate the market, releasing so much of South Africa's dead capital at once, which of course raises the question, what is dead capital? Dead capital is capital you cannot access because it's not available to you. So for instance, the houses that people live in, these RDP houses built all over the country, in townships and alongside them frequently, are on plots of land. The land has value to it, as does the structure. But if the government owns it, then you as the occupant cannot provide it as collateral to borrow money to start a small business or to invest or to meet your needs. You see, if you have collateral in the form of bonds, stocks, property, an asset that the bank can repossess when you fail to compensate them to pay back the loan, well, they can come after your assets. But if you have no assets, which is the case for many of these poor people living in these government-provided homes, then you have what is dead capital. Now, philosophically, private property rights go against who the African National Congress are at their very core, committed socialist or communist in some cases. The facade or veneer of a commitment to the free market was a concession that the African National Congress needed from the free market in order to remain in power all this time. Now, the ANC has had 30 years to transfer ownership of land. It could have been done successfully during that stretch of time. Yet most of those who live in RDP houses do not own them. Only now, after court cases dictate that they issue the title deeds, is that happening. Ultimately, the African National Congress caters worldview relies on dependency on the state. Keeping folks poor makes them beholden to the state, or in this case, the state being the party, rather than letting them be free and independent. Keeping purchased farmland under the willing buyer, willing seller program in government hands, as well as retaining state control over RDP houses, also helps support the narrative that white South Africans own all the land. That, of course, is ludicrous. The government of South Africa is the largest landowner in South Africa. Also, the ANC government has not carried out a land audit since 2017. And even that audit showed that white South Africans were only 53% or 95,000 individuals. That's 0.019. Less than 2% of white South Africans owned farmland. Now, granting ownership of RDP houses and plots or the accumulated state purchased land would dramatically increase the number of black landowners and defeat the racist argument that whites own 70% of the land. Of course, by acreage, white South African farm owners do own a lot more land than blacks, Indians, or coloreds, but that is a fallacious argument in any case. The issue is intentionally distorted for political gain at the expense of racial relations and societal unity. When it comes to land, Ubuntu is not in the cards, intentionally. Folks, do not be misled by the constant discussion about land expropriation. The law is about expropriation of property. As Section 25 of the Constitution clearly stipulates, property is not limited to land. Homes, cars, Krugerrands, land, pension funds, medical schemes, copyrights, trademarks, businesses, and whatever some bureaucrat decides they want to steal from you at no cost to them, in the public interest, of course. The existing law prior to January 2025 was misused to get land for the politically connected, not even for claimants to the land. The Ackerland Brewery in Limpopo, for instance, comes to mind. Ladies and gentlemen, the expropriation without compensation law of nil or zero compensation will be used to silence political opponents by whoever is the government of the day. It's a violation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that respect private property rights. It's a betrayal and violation of U.S. public law for access to the African Growth and Opportunity Act, and it is morally bankrupt. And don't be distracted by people talking about, well, farm murders, talking about farm murders. Don't be distracted about the conversations about, well, this and that. It's not about that. This is about an abusive piece of legislation that is unconstitutional, that the government has promulgated to punish people whom they choose and lie to people saying it's in the public interest. You have a means to acquire land. It has been done for decades. It's not landowners' fault that you are denying access to that land or that you keep land held in state trust so that people remain poor and dependent on the state. That's your fault. All these arguments about historically disadvantage and poverty, that is not germane to this conversation. When you abrogate private property rights, you destroy an economy. No one in their right mind is going to put their foreign direct investment in a country where someone can steal their equity and their business from them. What is the point? Only people who take the highest risk will do that. But that's not a healthy economy. So don't be deceived. Don't be misled. It's not about the arguments people are making. Yes, land is part of it. It can be expropriated without compensation. And don't listen to the argument that the land isn't being taken. Land is being occupied by people in Shishejo, in Polokwane, in Limpopo province for the past few weeks, illegally. And the basis they made for doing that and dividing that land up that doesn't belong to them, well, Ramaphosa passed a law. We are expropriating ourselves. And now they're demanding services from the municipality. This doesn't end well for anybody. They're turning this into a racial argument when it's not a racial argument. The means to right past historical misdeeds have been in place for 3 decades. The ANC has selectively applied those means in selective occasions and rarely for the benefit of Black and poor South Africans, usually for the enrichment of cadres. Look no further than what happened at Akerloo and Broderie. There you go, folks. What say you? Cheers.